All right. And
we're not supposed to look at the camera, are we?
no, it doesn't matter. I can see you. You gonna start it? You're already taping?
Yeah.
Well, why? Okay. All right. Mom, where were you born?
In Carson.
What was the day like when you were born?
I was,
Can't
I don't
remember.
remember.
Do you know how much you weighed?
Yeah,
How much was that?
5 pounds, 14 ounces. I was little one.
And what was it, where did you get your name from?
Well, my grandmother's name was Minnie Blanche. My mother blessed me with that Blanche. And then I was named Enola for a lady called Enola Berezay. And she was a beautiful Spanish girl. And every mother in the community wanted their daughter to look like that. So we had 4 girls in the community that was actually named after her. One was Leola, one was Nola, and the other was Enola. Quite fine.
What about you, Dad? Where were you born?
I was born in Cardston, Alberta, July the 19th, 1928.
What year was yours, Mom? When were you born?
1929, July 26th.
1929, 1928. Okay. What about you, Dad? Any story about your day of birth?
Yeah. Dr. Malloy, who was the doctor in Cardston for years and years, told my mother, he said, this kid's going to be famous before he dies. And she said, why is that? Because he said, because he was born with his face towards the sky.
I see. And where'd your name come from?
Well, in my dad's journals, and I know they called me the boy in his journals. Edna and I and the boy went to town. But I guess they named me, neighbor woman suggested the name, Dean Albert.
And weren't named until you were near 2?
Well, I don't know when I was named exactly, but anyway, when it was a while after I was born, so. Because they already had 5 boys when I come along.
Do you know how much you weighed?
No, but I think it was around 8 pounds, if I remember my mother.
Do you have any birthmarks?
Yep.
Or anything unusual?
I have one here, kind of looks like a
spot.
It's a brown spot that's kind of shaped like one of those nuts like we was looking at in the shop down here today. They was selling back bulk.
And what about your eyebrows?
Well, my eyebrows, this left one is white, and my sideburns are white, and then when I close my eye, my eyelash is on the left side is white. And so that was a kind of I always say that's, my dad was French, my mother was English and Danish, and that's what you get a throwback when you cross 3 different nationalities.
Is there anything else, Dad? Maybe something over here. You want to tell or
On my chest,
You can go with no comment.
I have what they call a barrel chest.
Mom knows what I'm trying to get.
But I also have 2 marks down below the ones that are there that looks like I've got 4.
Looks like a boar.
Yeah, 4. I only thought you had 3.
No, 4.
That's not ribs, is it?
No.
Just checking.
No, it's like,
That's like a cow.
yeah. I told you I was a throwback.
Mom, what about you? Do you have any birthmarks?
I've got one on my side and one on my arm, and there's a real story to this. Mom and Dad didn't have very much money, and they came home one night and they saw this badger go down a badger hole, So Dad left Mom there watching the badger. Well, he went and got water so he could come drown it out, and he'd get this badger and could sell it and, you know, get a little money. So Mother was pretty upset by the time he finally got back, but they got the badger. And I was born, it was just a month before I was born. And when I was born here, I got this one on my side here. It looks just like a badger stretched out, and this one here does too. And this one here stays dark, and this one here is quite white.
Very interesting.
Wasn't that neat?
That is interesting. See, I would have never known that. Had I not asked the question.
That's right.
Okay, Mom, I know you were the firstborn.
In my family.
But Dad, you had already brothers before you? How
I
many
had
brothers?
5. I was the 6th one. And when they seen me, they decided to quit. And 6 years later, I got another brother. 2 years after that, I got a sister. The only girl in the family, Marie. Ray was the brother, and Marie was the sister.
And Mom, how many ended up being in your family?
Well, there's four of us living, but we lost a little sister when I was 5, I think, something like that. She had pneumonia and whooping cough, and she passed away. She was just 3 months old. And
Tell the story about you and Uncle Dan with Grandma when you guys were riding the horses.
oh yeah, well there was just Dan and I after that for a long time, and then Carol, I think I was 12 when she was born. Anyway, we were going to school one morning, and Mother had not been her usual real sweet, cheerful self, and so we were talking about it. So Dan said to me, and I could see me, he was down on Old Perky, that's a little Shetland we used to have, and I was riding. He says, "You don't suppose she's pregnant, do you?" And I said, "No, not, you know, it'd be such, she'd never had a baby all these years, you know." And then for Christmas, that was part of our big Christmas event was, they told us that we were going to have a baby. Then 2 years later, we got Frank, my baby. It was just wonderful to have little ones in the family, and until then we kind of helped George and Beth Foggen with their kids, but when we got our own, it was really special. And I had Frank so spoiled that when I was gone to school, Mother would have to, when the radio was playing and there was a nice jazzy tune come on, Mother would have to dance with the little devil. As soon as I get home from school, I'd take him and we'd dance all over the kitchen, you know.
So you must have been 14-ish when he was born.
I was 15 when
Wow.
Frank was only 3 when I got married.
Wow.
Carol was 5.
They must have
It was
been
like leaving my own kids when I got married.
So how far did you have to ride to school, Dad?
Well, we used to ride to Whiskey Gap, which was just a little under 2.5 miles. And,
Did you take a bus, like a...
no, we rode horseback. Most of the time it was just 2 on a horse, and sometimes it was 3. It was Lloyd and Melvin and me.
How old were you when you started school?
I was 7.
7. And you guys didn't have kindergarten back then, or
No.
you did? And you went everybody was in one room?
Right.
Who was your first teacher?
My first teacher was Mary Higginberg. And the reason that I didn't go to school was when I was 6 in July, I was old enough to go to school. But my mother thought that I was too little, so she kept me back. And then, as I'm older now, I remember that she started looking fatter to me. And I never thought of it then. But this was the 1st of September is when you started school, or that close to it. And on the 26th of October, my brother Ray was born.
And you were 6.
And I was 6.
And still
Yes.
wasn't in school.
So you were a baby, though.
I was the baby
And
of the
Grandma-
family, basically, but
Didn't
yes.
Grandma let you had blonde, curly hair?
Yep,
Didn't Grandma let it get a little long sometimes?
yeah. And it stuck out all over. It just was like a fluff ball. And they used to call me Cotton Top. But I got a grandson, Adam, that's about the same now. And that his hair just is quite white. But thing of it was, Melvin, my brother that was going to school, brought his reader home. And so I started, by the time that I started the next September, I could read. And so I started in September. At Christmas time, I used to make things out of plasticine. I'd never seen it before until I went to school. So I used to make pigs and cattle and that, and I would put the entrails in and the heart and all this stuff, and then so it kind of pinch it together. So the teacher walked by, Mary Higginberg, one day and seen me doing this, and so she said to me, she said, well, she says, Christmas is right away. She says, could you make Santa Claus and a sleigh and 4 reindeer out of plasticine? And I said, yeah, I think I could do that. So she took all the plasticine away from everybody. At that time, it was kind of a red or brown color. That wasn't all the colors that they had later. And so I made the sleigh, I made Santa Claus with his bag, and then the 4 reindeer, even with lines and stuff coming back out of plasticine. And she kept it till way after the first of the year. Then at Easter time, when I come back and we were out of 10 days for Easter, she put me in the 2nd grade. And so when I got out the first year, at the end of June, I was in the 3rd grade going, and so I was right with the rest of the kids.
So it was, yeah. You were smart enough that she moved you up.
Yeah.
What about you, Mom? How old were you when you started school?
6 and a half, actually. And the teacher, my first teacher, was Miss Whitworth, Eileen Whitworth, and she did not like me at all.
Why not? Were you a whiner, Mom?
No. I had.
Unlike you.
She didn't want us to start because we started at Christmas time, and so she told Dad, "Well, I won't let her start unless somebody else will start too." So Dad went, and I don't know how it come that Velma Sommerfeld started at Christmas too. So, because Miss Whitworth did not like this idea, that I guess we made extra work for it. But anyway, no matter what, I would get the strap. It didn't matter. Velma used to look at my work and then copy it, you know, because I was a good speller and I could read and write when I started school, because Mom would do it at home, you know. But I had to ride 4 miles to school, so that's why I didn't go right when it first started. But I just kept pestering them, you know, and let me go to school, go to school.
So you were little and you had to ride all that way by yourself?
Battery. I gotta change the battery. Okay, we're back at it.
Okay, well, Miss Whitworth, like I said, didn't like me at all, and every time Velma did something wrong, or she used to accuse me of letting her cheat, because she'd look on and I'd let her copy it, I guess, and so I'd get the strap.
Where would she give you the strap?
Because I let Velma copy my work.
What was the strap?
Oh, they had a strap. It's about that long.
It's about 2.5 inches wide.
Yeah, and it's about that thick. But boy, I mean, it's done.
Did you give it on your hand?
Oh yeah, you got it on your hands.
What did Grandma and Grandpa say?
Well,
The
if you got
teachers
the
was
strap,
always
yeah,
right.
teachers always right, and if you got the strap at school, you always got one at home. And so needless to say, that first year was not my most pleasant.
And what they would do, they'd take your hand like this, and they'd have the strap, and it was just like belting, and they'd hit you across the hand like that, see?
Did you cry, Mom?
Probably, I don't remember.
I
She
can see.
used to make me so mad I might not have.
I can see you're familiar with the...
Oh,
Dad
yeah.
must have had the strap too, Dad.
One?
But anyway.
You'll tell us about that after Mom's done with Miss what was her name, Miss Whitmer?
Whitworth.
Mm.
So anyway, after she was just there, I just had her that 6 months, you know. And then after the next year, I had another teacher. So after I was married, though, and went to the hospital to have my first or second baby, I forget who should come to visit, but sweet Miss Whitworth. Dean and your grandma were both in there with me, and I got a little effect from them when she left because I wasn't nicer. I think she deserved it. I never really got over that.
Did she ever get married?
Oh yeah, she was Mrs. Whitworth. She had a daughter,
Oh.
but I don't know where her husband was or if they were divorced or
Oh.
anything. But yeah.
So did you have any other memories? Did you like a little boy when you were little?
No, not really. When I was going to school there, Iris, you know Iris Henry here, she was Iris Wiggle then, but that was the cutest kid. She had the long, shirty temple ringlets, and she was the oldest, or youngest in the family, so her mother sewed for her, so such cute things. And so she was the envy of all of us. I mean, yet we all loved her. I mean, we weren't that kind of envious. We were just wished that we could have those kind of things. And she used to wear little black patent leather shoes and little white ankle socks. She didn't have to wear long ones. And we all envied Iris, every girl. And we would go, and because I rode 4 miles horseback, I had the long underwear, winter underwear. We had long brown socks that come right up to here with a garter belt. You had to, you know. And then you had those old blue bloomers. They were dark, well, as blue as my pants, and they were like fleece, well, like your jogging outfits, that kind of material. Oh yeah, we had to have them. So when we'd get to school, us girls, well, we'd run to the bathroom, roll our socks down, roll up our underwear, and tuck them under the blue bloomers.
And they always wore dresses.
Oh yeah, you always had.
And they didn't wear pants.
They never had pants.
Wow.
But Iris would, she just looked so darn cute all the time, these little frilly dresses, the ankle socks and all, you know.
So you went to school in Del Bonita.
I went to school in Reiner, is where I started.
Reiner.
I went my first, second, and third year in Reiner. And when we went, the second year was Mary Homney, and the third year was Vern Wheeler.
Oh,
You know
I
Jay.
had Jay.
Yeah, well, this is Jay's brother. And when we went to the, can I just throw this in here?
Yeah.
When we went to Seattle Temple, this couple come across the floor right to me, and I thought, uh-oh, they're going to ask me to say a prayer or something, you know. And he said to me, "You don't know me, do you, Enola?" And I couldn't even think who it could be, you know. And then I realized it was Jenny and Vern. And his wife and him, they were married, and the first year they were married, that's where he taught, was in Reiner. He taught us to play baseball. We were all good baseball players, boy. And he'd get us out there every day. We'd play in the afternoon, and we just kind of idolized him.
This was when you were in grade 3? Right on.
And I was in grade 4 when we started going to Albany.
So he must have been fairly young.
Oh yeah, he just was married that year.
Right on.
But I stayed at Grandma and Grandpa's a lot in the winters, especially because
Which grandma and grandpa?
Dad's Grandma and Grandpa's. See, I didn't have a grandpa on Mom's side.
Oh, so grandma and grandpa White?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where Joyce lives now.
Oh.
Yeah.
And see, the school was right up there at the corner, you know, that from Grandpa's that was only a mile. So in the wintertime I stayed up there a lot because it was just too far to.
And how was Dan going to school with you too by then?
Dan started the year we started in
Del Bonita.
Mhm.
How much younger is he than you?
3 years.
Oh.
2 years and 9 months to be exact.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that much
But this
age.
Iris Wiggle only lived down, she wasn't about half a mile from the school, was all they lived, see, so.
Oh. So she could wear nice socks.
Oh,
because
yes.
She didn't have a big track. What was your horse's name?
Peanuts. But at that time I was riding a horse called Tiny. Dad bought me this horse, and he was so fat, you know, and I was not big, but I'd sit on that old horse and my legs were just straight out. And then Peanuts was, well, he was the love of my life, but I never rode him really alone for quite a while, but he bought me a horse from Bert Caldwell, and it was called Old Punch. And he was white, and he was fat, and he was slow. Hated that horse. I was so glad when we got rid of that one. But he finally let me start riding Peanuts, and when I was just 5 months old, Mom and Dad used to live over what we call over the hill, you know, and she was at Grandma's, and so her and I went on Peanuts home, and he ran away with us. And Dad and Louis Powell came along after. Dad found my hat. He about had it hit. He was, I think, going to kill that horse when he got home. But we were all there fine, and he'd run right to the barn, I guess. Just he knew where home was.
What did you write with? Did you have pencil?
Mm-hmm. And of course, when we started out, we weren't worrying about pens. But by the time we had the wooden pen with a nib, you put the nib in, and every desk had an inkwell. And you had it right in the corner there, and you kept your ink in there, and you dip your nib in, and then you could write. And we used to really practice writing. That was a thing that was a must. You just practice and practice and practice. And you know how you got those music books now that you write your... Well, that's kind of how our books were for writing script, like. And we would practice. They'd have an A, and you'd have to fill them all in all A's, you know, and then you graduated, you got... So you could write the little ones, and then you got, so you'd write A, B, C, and then D, E, F, and, you know, you just, and it was something every kid did, was really practice their writing.
And what was your best subject?
Writing.
Spelling, you're a really good
speller.
speller.
I was real, and in fact, I just found 2 or 3 of my old report cards, and really, I was kind of surprised, and the one I got from Vern, he says in there that I was really doing good work, you know, and I've always figured I was pretty dumb. But then I found my 9th grade one, and I passed 9th grade with a B+. So I couldn't have been quite as dumb as I thought I was.
I think you're smart, Mom. Like, you really seem to be high in language,
Well,
like
that was
reading,
my
language
favorite.
arts, that sort of.
That's
So
what
what
I
grade
liked.
did you go to?
I went right to the 12th grade. I quit. I went just to the 11th of November in the 12th grade. And I was already engaged, and Beth had an operation and really needed help, so that was my last day in school. I went up there and helped her.
Helping Beth Father?
Mm-hmm. She had a new baby, and she was real sick.
So then the rest of your school years, you always went to Del Bonita. Okay, but this is a really tough question because it always bugs me. How did you know where to go when you were little, riding the horse to school 4 miles?
Well,
Like, how would you know? Did you take the roads, or
yeah.
did you cut through fields?
No, we just, you know, everybody, you made your own trails as you went, and as the years went by, they just got deeper and deeper, those ruts, and so you know.
You had to go through gates, so
Mm-hmm.
through different people's property.
So you're little, and would you have to get down and open gates?
I never did on, well, I did too, I'd have to, but usually though, Dad would be going, and so he'd say, just leave the gate open, and I'll shut it when I come. And that way, I'd just pull my horse up there, and he'd let me undo the gate from, and then it would just drop, and he'd walk over.
So, Dad, what was your first day of school like?
Well, my first day of school, we had the Gilberts, and he was an elevator man. And so Sheila, I'd always played with her. They came to our place quite a bit, and we'd play house. And so they had the teacups and all this stuff like this. So the first day of school, the grade 1 desk was against the north wall, and the blackboard was there. And so anyway, I guess it was just habit. We was there for a few minutes, and I reached up and give her a little kiss on the cheek, you know, and Mary Higginberg come down there and grabbed me by the ears and just rattled my head off the blackboard. "You don't do that, young man," she said. And so I never kissed another girl until I kissed my wife.
Yeah, right, Dad. That's a nice try.
Yeah, right.
Dad, tell the branding story.
Well, there was the Bimlers and the Berezays and the Littles that rode horseback that were country kids. And then there was some from the north, too, like Joe Berezay's and them. And the Summerfelts and them walked that lived right in town. But anyway, the town kids was always against the country kids. And so the school, of course, had windows only in one side, which was the south.
Which school was this?
This was Whiskey Gap. Valleyfield is what they called it, Whiskey Gap. Valleyfield School number 57.
Okay.
And so anyway, what happened was them kids that lived in Whiskey Gap went down there one time and started throwing rocks or snow or whatever and broke some windows. And so when they got confronted, oh, well, it was them country kids. We don't know nothing about it. And so, of course, when they confronted us, we said that we weren't even around. We didn't know anything that had happened. And so it has to be somebody that lives here. And so anyway, the store was a half a mile away from the school, roughly. And so my brothers, Melvin and... Now, when I went that first year, Vern went part of that year. And there was a story, too. It was snow time, and back in those days, they bought oatmeal and all the time in boxes. That's when it come out in boxes. And there was always like a soup bowl, you know, like a cereal bowl in them.
Like those pretty
and
ones I have.
and you could, you know, keep buying this, and you could get a set eventually.
Oh, you get them free in the oatmeal.
Yeah, they was free in the oatmeal, and so we were coming home on this sorrel mare, and she was a little snaky, and I was riding behind Vern, and she did like your mother said, she started running away. And so I said, you know, old Vern says, hang on to that oatmeal. And so she was going faster and faster, so we came to a snowdrift, and I throwed the box, because I figured that we was going to get throwed off at any time. Well, when he got her stopped up under the last hill, and we came back, and that's all he was worried about, is if we broke that bowl in there, we'd be on the Scotch blessing list. And so anyway, we went back and picked it up. We didn't say a thing when we got home, and Mom always opened it up and poured it in and got the dish out first thing. And so he only went for a few months, Vern did, in the 9th grade.
Well, was the bowl broken, Dad?
No, it was not broken. No.
Well, get back to your other story about what happened to you after you.
Like, how old were you at this time?
I was 7 at this time.
Okay.
And then after that, like I said, when we rode to school, some of the time we had 2 horses when we didn't, if we walked.
You're telling about the branding.
Okay, so when I got the time that, when these windows got broke, I was probably about 9.
Okay.
And wore bib overalls and a shirt, and, you know, all you had is gaunches on underneath.
Right.
And this was like in the spring or the summer, you know, it was still cold enough that they had to have a fire in the stove. So my brothers and everybody, including the teacher, went to the store at noon, and so here's these big, and I won't mention any names here, but the biggest kids there grabbed on to me, and they took me down to the basement where the stove was, and I can still see that big poker that was flat like this and bent, and they put her in the coals, and they held on to me, and they was going to brand me unless us Berzeys admitted that we was the ones that. So anyway, I struggled all I could, and pretty soon out come the poker out of the stove, and it was red hot, and they pulled my pants down, my bib overalls, and right here on, that's where they were going to brand me, is on the cheek. And so I wasn't a swearing person at that time, and I just struggled till and I was crying, and I said, all right, you SBs, but I said, you go ahead and brand me, but when my brothers and my dad get here tomorrow, they'll kill every one of you. And at that point, they hesitated and hung the poker on the wall and let me loose. But it was that close, and that was it was a pretty traumatic thing for me. Yeah. Because when I'm there alone, and here's 2 guys that are 6 foot tall, have got you, one holding you, and the other getting ready to put the brand on you.
Do you know those guys now?
Yep. Both of them are dead.
Oh,
Oh, they got payback.
No, but, you know, over the years, I just looked at it as something that, you know, the kids do. You know, I never hated them or anything for it, but at the time, I was pretty frightened of that, so.
What was another memory that you had at school? Did you have another
Okay, we used to ride through the Hudson Bay. You see, in Canada they had school sections, and Hudson Bay, the Hudson Bay Company had sections. And this was a Hudson Bay section, and so we rode through there, and Rob Nelson had at least, and he had his sheep herd there, and he had this old Ford car sitting up there. And so apparently the wind blows in that country, and the wind blew the brake loose or something, and it went down this coulee and over a pile of rocks and kind of wrecked it. But anyway, as we rode through there, we never did stop unless he was there and talked to him. But this night, Melvin and Bill Seckerton went into his sheep wagon because he wasn't around, got some crackers. But I stayed right on the horse. I did not get off because I did not think it was right. And also, so then within about 3 days, here comes Jack Graham, the RCMP officer, and called us out of school and took us outside to talk to us. And he didn't ask us if we had run his car and turned it loose. He said, you kids did this and you're going to go to jail and da-da-da-da. And I'm telling you, at my age, at 9 years old or something like that, you know, or 10, you know, you get pretty upset because the police was the police, you know, then. And, but anyway, nothing more come of it. But that day that he was there, until the day that that man died, he still believed that we turned his car loose. And if Bill did it after we rode away, we don't know. But at least it did not happen when he was there. And another time, they were building the elevator house. And so I was playing with Eddie Barry. And it's, you know, you didn't have a lot of toys. The kids nowadays have got a lot of toys. And so we was making dirt roads out in front of this house they was building. And they was putting the fence up and everything. And this little latch that's on a gate that's got the notch in that they screw on, and that thing that clicks it in when you close the little wire gate. Mm-hmm. I was playing with that, using it as a car. And so Eddie called, well, come on, Dean, let's go do. And I just slipped it in my coat pocket. And we went around the house to do whatever. And I figured when I come back, we'd go back to playing cards. Well, about the time we got around the house, Dad rode up on his horse, and he said, come on, Dean. He said, we got to get home. And I never thought a thing about it. I just run out there, and I picked up, I had, I think, my reader at the gate, and got on behind my dad. So here we're going home. We get about halfway, about where this car went down. It was over the second hump, and I happened to put my hands in my pocket, and here I found this thing. And, you know, I just kind of like that, so I took it out, and I throwed it back like that. And my dad says, what's that you throwed? Oh, I said, no, nothing. He said, you get off and go get that and bring it back here. So I went and looked in the grass and found it. I brought it back, and he said, where'd you get that? Well, I said, it goes on Tim Barry's gate. Well, he said, that's fine. He said, get on here. He says, when you go to school in the morning, he said, you go and give that to Tim Barry and tell him you stole it. And so that's what I had to do the next morning. And of course, Tim just smiled about it, you know, but it, you know, all these things, because everything had to be proper in those days. Like your mother said, when you got a strap at school, you got, and that's what I said, you did chores a lot of times, because your brothers, if you got the strap, they'd kind of blackmail you, you know, but if you, to keep them from mentioning it, you did extra work for them, and then they didn't say anything, and you didn't get in trouble at home. Yeah, you didn't get a strap at home, you got a licking at home.
And not finger licking either.
That's exactly right. But everybody did it, and there was discipline, there was respect, and everything. And in those days, when we went to school, your mother and I both, ministers, priests, bishops, and school teachers, hey, you respected all of those people.
You respected all elders.
And all the adult people. You called them Mr. and Mrs.
No matter how good you knew them.
And the thing that bothers me today is you thank some young person and say, no problem. And it kind of leaves me like, well, what do they mean? See, in our day, if somebody says thank you, we'd say, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. You see, and that way, that's But it's the difference between society now and then.
So did you ever have to ride a bus to school?
Yep. I finished grade 6. In fact, I learned to play hockey. I always was a good skater. And so Hubert West, when he was our teacher at Whiskey Gap, that was the end of the rail line, and they had a big water tower that was fed by a spring. And they'd pull in there, and it had a great big nozzle like that, and they could pull that down and fill that train in 10 minutes for the steam engine, see? So anyway, in the wintertime, and they'd only come once in a while, so they went in there with slip scrapers or something on the north side of that and put a little burl up around a sod, and they flooded that, and that was our skating rink. And they could just pull that thing down, and in 15 seconds, it was enough water to flood that, and that's where I started. So I finished grade 6 in Whiskey Gap, and then they consolidated the schools to Jefferson. And this took Whiskey Gap, this took Taylorville, Jefferson, Kimball, Pershing, and that was the ones that was... Rolfe Creek was consolidated together into the Jefferson School in 1942. And I was in the 7th grade.
How many grades did you go to?
I went through 10. And I was like your mother. I had no trouble in school till the 9th grade because, and at that time, my dad had to keep me out. You'd go and register the first day in September, and then you'd stay home till the thrashing was over with for a month. Mm-hmm. And then in the spring, when the lambing time started, the 1st of April, you was out another month. And so when you I passed grade 9 with a C, which is average. But before that, I was, you know, anywhere up in the class. I was an excellent speller, and arithmetic, and I did not like literature.
See, that's what I like.
You know, where you have the nouns and pronouns and all this stuff. I didn't eat that at all. But but I liked history and you know,
social studies.
Social studies,
like science too.
Science, all of those things like that. And so, but no, that was when I went to Jefferson. They didn't have the school quite finished. So anyway, we went to Uncle Lester's, which was 2.5 miles away. I rode a horseback there. There was still Lloyd and Melvin and I. And we put our horse in the barn there, and Jim Reinhardt picked us up on the corner and took us to Jefferson, which was 7 miles.
And Uncle Lester is Grandma.
Your Grandma Berezay's brother.
Brother.
Yeah, oldest brother.
So, Mom, what was the school bus like?
Oh, well, when we started out, we were just in a car. But then he put a box on the back of the pickup. And that, you know, and those were awful when you think about it. But at that time, we thought that was great because you were warm in there, you know. And but there's, well, I think Gene did have a little tiny window, maybe a window about like so. And but yeah, it was okay. But he had the first real school bus. He bought a real school bus, and there was probably, oh, I don't know, probably about, seems like there was probably in the 30s on there, you know, that many kids.
Mm-hmm. How much do you think a bus cost?
Oh, I don't.
In those days?
Uh-huh.
I don't think he paid over.
They probably paid, you could buy a car then for, well, we bought our car in our 52 half-ton pickup for $1,985.75 in 1953.
And see, Gene started driving.
And so they'd probably be $1,000 back when they got the first buses come out.
Well,
wow.
Yeah, because and it was a big one with nice seats in it and everything. But
what color was it?
It was gray. Had a gray color.
Did it say school bus on it?
No, I don't remember whether it did or not. I don't think it did.
No, they never put that on to start with.
But it was really funny. We got stuck one time going home, and the roads were, you know, we didn't have the gravel on the road; they were mud. Mm-hmm. And we had one girl, Bernice Dayglow, was a pretty good sized girl, you know, hefty, good strong girl. And we had to get out, and Gene hooked up this rope, and here we are, all of us. And I mean, I was like, I might have weighed 60 pounds, you know, and we had a lot about my size, and then we had some bigger boys. But old Bernice, she got on the end of that rope, and boy, I tell you, we come back up on the road, and we got home. No problem, no problem. Yeah, oh, Gene, he sure laughed. But he was a good bus driver, really good. Looked after us good. And he'd never leave. Like, in the mornings when we rode up there, we were usually right there on time. But there was a time or two when we decided that we didn't really want to go to school. So there was a certain spot we could get, and we knew Gene couldn't see us. And we were just about to the corner anyway where we caught him. But sometimes we did. I think a couple of times played hooky, Dan and I. We'd sit there on our horses until we could hear him going, you know. But he hardly ever, if he could see you coming, he never left. He just knew when you better go ahead and get on that bus because he's not going to leave till you get there.
Where'd you put your horses?
Well, we had Brenton's had a barn. We put him there. But first, we went to Perry's first. And then, I don't know how come we decided to go to Clayton's, other than the fact that he did have a good barn where we could put the horses in. And they was just right across the road from each other, so.
Oh, I see.
Well, and then he had to stop there for Frank, whereas the Perry kids, there was nobody going anymore. So, that's how come.
They were all on the same side of the road that way to pick
Yeah.
up. See.
So, how many dresses would you have when you were a kid? Like?
Well, we weren't rich, but my mother was a sewer. And I never really remember feeling that my clothes weren't as good as everybody else's. Because all she had to do was look at a picture and she'd sew it. Grandma Woods was the same way, and you know, Grandma was a milliner, worked in a place where they made hats when she was in England, and so I always had the neatest hats. I hate hats, you know, but there were times when it was a nice thing to have, something that you got for Christmas usually. But I don't know how many I wouldn't have.
Like, I mean, you had a work dress, a couple of work play dresses.
Well, you had dresses that you.
And then you have like school dresses and church dresses.
But you'd only have, well, we didn't ever go to church, so never had any good church dresses.
I see.
But after I started where I was going to dance, why there, and you'd maybe have a dance once a month. And usually Mom would try and have it so that I'd have a new dress for the dance, you know.
And was fabric expensive?
Well, a lot of mine was made out of things that she just took apart and redone. I think one of my most beautiful dresses, or I thought it was a really pretty rose color. And she took a coat apart and turned the fabric, and that was the color it was on the inside. And then she trimmed it with big black buttons about like that, and a black belt. And oh, I loved that dress. That was a beautiful dress. And she made the collar that was black lined, like, you know. And I really loved that dress. And but I was probably 16.
You were pretty snazzy. Did you wear your hair long or short?
I wore my hair long, real long. I had beautiful hair once.
Curly? Was it curly?
No,
or
straight as a stick.
But dark?
Yeah, real dark. And Mother used to just take, though, like, in those days, you bathed every Saturday, you know. Saturday night's bath night. And so after I'd have my hair, she'd usually wash my hair Saturday afternoon. And it was real long, and she'd just take a brush and she'd put it around her fingers and brush it around, you know. And then those ringlets, they'd last all week.
Like you used to do to me, Mom?
Yeah. Yeah, right. And and when I'd get up and go to school in the morning, she'd just brush it around her finger, and I'd go and they'd stay in all week. And then when I got older, there was this big style where you took this part of your hair and you rolled it back like this and you pinned it. You know, and there was just like big rolls there. And then you pulled it back. They called it put it in a kind of like a ponytail, only that you turned it all under, kind of like, I can't think what you'd call it, what to compare it to. But it was really quite pretty. Or else you put a pretty bow across there and just left it. And your hair usually turned under, you know. And that was really popular when I was about 16, 17, something. But I had really nice blonde hair.
What about makeup? Did the girls wear makeup back then?
Yeah, but not, you know, I mean, Well, they used to wear powder and rouge and all that sort of stuff, but that was more our mothers did that than us. But I said, I was like Dusty, I used to chew my fingernails. And it was, my mother was not happy, you know. But I did it all the time, just would do it. And then I started to school in Galvanita in the 4th grade. First time we picked up Aunt Irene, there she was with these beautiful, long fingernails and all painted. And oh, I just decided right there I'm going to get me some. So I quit chewing my fingernails and finally and now it's me with the long fingernails, and here's Aunt Irene with these little short, nice ones. Yeah. But I've always remembered that. I thought she was the most beautiful thing, and then ended up being my sister-in-law. Kind of nice.
Did they have deodorant back then? How'd you keep them stinking?
He just didn't.
Baby powder was about the only thing that was around in them days.
Or talcum.
Oh, they had talcum that they sold.
But as far as real deodorant, like we call it now, but you washed. You always had like I used to call them spit bath.
Right.
But every night before you went to bed, or every morning when you got up, you washed under your arms and, you know.
Sponge bath.
Yeah.
But when we used to have them Saturday night baths, they'd always start with the youngest kid and go up through, and then the parents would bath last in the same water.
So you were pretty lucky because you
Yeah,
were near the beginning.
I was real lucky. And in the summertime, I loved that. Dad would work away from home all the time. Then when he'd come home at night, you know, that's when the river is the warmest. It's in the evening and it started to cool off, and boy, you realize how warm that river water is. But we'd go down, and Mother never could swim. But Dad, he would, you know, he'd like to go for a swim, so we'd all go down, and you know, Dan and I, of course, in the summertime, we spent hours down there on that, you know, playing in the sand and just in and out of the water all day, you know, as long as our work was done. And I love that late night swim there was
One of your favorite.
And it was really nice because you didn't have to bath. You got to bath every day, you know, and because those little tubs weren't awful big.
No. So what about your baths, Dad? Were you saying?
Well, you'd when you got bigger, you'd sit on the chair and wash up as far as, or sit in the tub and wash up as far as possible and down as far as possible. But you heated it on the coal and wood stove, this water, and probably put about that much in a tub that was this big around. And
well, and then you kept a hot kettle.
yeah, to keep warming it up for the next one. So it wasn't exactly all. And this, most of the time, we had hand soap that they bought, usually for that, for, you know, to wash your face 3 or 4 times a day and to bath with. But the rest of the soap for laundry and that, my mother made it.
Yeah,
And so did her mother.
At a lard.
Lard and lye and
Glycerin.
and it didn't have too much flavor to it as far as scent, because there was none. In fact, it's actually kind of stunk, but not really, not a real bad odor.
Yeah, but it worked good.
So what was your favorite meal when you were growing up, Mom?
Food.
Like what would be, you know, something like if Kristen's so happy if I make Kraft macaroni. You know, like that is just a great meal. But what about you?
No, I can't. I really like breakfast better than, you know, even yet breakfast is my favorite meal.
What would Grandma make for breakfast?
Oh, you always had to have pancakes. My dad thought I was terrible if he didn't have pancakes every morning of the world, you know. And so my very favorite was when Mother baked bread. If the next morning she let me have a piece of that new bread for breakfast, I was in heaven then. But I do like breakfast, and we always had eggs.
What would be like a typical supper?
Well, when I'd come home from school, Mother usually always would have a roast. Or Mother was a good cook, a real conservative cook, though. She was not you know, but she's a good cook. Didn't matter what she had, it was good.
So usually, more often than not, you'd have meat and potatoes?
Always.
And
Usually
vegetables.
always had meat and potatoes. And vegetables were, we didn't really have much of variety, like, and I think that's why I don't care for fresh fruits and things, because we never had them when I was growing up.
What about you, Dad? Other than sweets, what was your favorite meal?
Well, we didn't get many sweets, and my mother, there was never a meal that you didn't have sweets.
We didn't get cakes for birthdays and stuff like that.
Really? I always thought you would have.
My mother, she made 8 loaves of bread and a pound of biscuits every other day. And so, and we the same way for meals. We had potatoes and gravy and meat and bread, and a lot of the times it was fruit for dessert. And then later on, as we got older, a lot of macaroni and tomatoes, and that was, I could sit down and eat a bowl of macaroni and tomatoes myself, like that, you know, and along with the rest of the meal. But you always, at our house, it didn't matter who you were, if you were right-handed, when you sit down with a plate, you had a slice of bread or a bun in your left hand. It just went along with what we did. It was simple food, but it was good food, and when we'd go to school, those kids, the kids at school, because my mother made such good bread, would trade like bananas and chocolate bars to us for
Piece of Grandma's bread.
Yeah, for the bread. And usually it was either, well, later on it become jam and peanut butter. But then we used, at one time, we had, we'd sometimes take sandwiches that just had homemade butter on them. That's all we had. And then you might have, you know, some cookies. She did make cookies more than anything else. But when the weekend come, on Friday or Saturday, she'd always make, that's when she'd make cakes or pies or things like that, because we always had a lot of company on Sunday. You see, my dad was not a member of the church. My mother was, but we always had company because they knew they could go to Dean and Edna's and they'd usually be home every Sunday. And Dad was an excellent host and Mother was an excellent cook. And just to give you an example, when we were engaged, we rode up there to have a Sunday dinner. Rode from her folks', which is 12 miles across country. She was riding her horse and I was riding behind the saddle. And we got there, and Mom and Dad and Ray and Marie were there in the one house, and Glenn and May and Lorna and Glenna were in the little house. They were living there at that time when we got engaged. And so there was 10 of us there for dinner. So we eat about, I guess about 1:30 is when we eat. And by 3:30 that afternoon, she had fed 63 people.
Wow.
Here comes Aunt May and Uncle August, and here comes Champneys, and they just drop in. And so, well, how does she, you know, people today, you know, she just, in the basement, she had bottled chicken in 2-quart bottles, and she had beef and things like that. So it was just a matter of putting this stuff. She could have it ready in 5 minutes for this new bunch that was coming, or maybe she'd already had a whole pan full of fresh fried chicken that we had just killed like the day before. But that's the way it always was. And so then it got to be that Dad would say, all right, the women would get to get up to clear the, no, just sit down and visit. Dean and Melvin will be mad if they don't get to do the dishes. And we'd go out with them dishes into the kitchen and we'd be looking like this, you know.
Yeah, because all they got of the chicken would be the wings.
Yeah, here's the difference that I see today that is, I guess it's all right. But I see it everywhere I go, whether it's in the United States or Canada, they feed the kids first. In our day, they all eat pretty well at the same time, but the breasts and the legs and the thighs and everything, that is what the grown-ups eat. The kids eat the backs and the wings and the rumps and that kind of stuff. And the necks, you see. And you could eat all you wanted. That's what my dad always said. I don't care how much you eat, but eat what you take. And so there would be times when your eyes are bigger than your stomach, you know, and you'd take too much. Well, that'd go, like if it was dinner or supper, it'd go in the cupboard. and you eat it the next meal. So you got, after just about 2 or 3 trips like that, you take some and then take some more if you want, see. And today, there's so much waste. But nowadays, they feed the kids, and when the kids go and help themselves. Now, a lot of them, I see, like Dixie and a lot of these, they fill their kids' plates because they know about what they're going to eat. But a lot of people just turn their kids loose, and they take all of the what they want, and they leave half of it on their plate, see. And so this was the difference between when we grew up. But I loved, well, I liked everything, but I didn't really like cheese in those days, and onions. And the reason I didn't like onions is because the milk cows would get into the field where there was stinkweeds. And when you'd milk them, and you didn't really know that, but when you separated it and made it into butter, or went to use the milk on cereal, here's this stinkweedy taste. So there was an onion on the table, you took it, and you went like this, and chewed it with your teeth, and put your tongue against it, and it done something to your taste buds that you could go ahead and eat it, and you wouldn't taste the stinkweed.
I knew it was there. But the people I worked for, that's exactly what they'd have bread and milk and onion nights for suppers. Not me, I liked bread and onion, but I sure didn't want no milk with it.
So, Dad, did you wear overalls most of the time? Bib
Yep.
overalls?
Yeah, bib overalls, and then it was later on. And it was the same way. When we come home, we could go in the house and have a slice of bread with jam or honey or something on it when we first got home from school. And then that was it until supper time came. But when September came, they would always send an order away and get us 2 new shirts and 2 new pair of pants and some socks. And usually, if we needed a pair of shoes, we might get a pair of shoes. And after we was in the new house, we'd go up the stairs with them old raggy shirts that we was wearing every day, and we'd just grab it like this, and the buttons would just be going like this, you know, because we wanted to try on our new ones to see if they were going to fit. Well, my mother all the buttons didn't come off, but some did, and so she'd wonder when she went to wash them, what happened to your buttons? I don't know. But we always got new clothes to start school. And one time he sent word with this old guy. He was a bachelor. I don't remember his name. But anyway, he talked quite broken, and he went into C.W. Burt's. And he says, I want 6 pair of Ye overalls for Dean Berezay. And old Charlie Burt says, well, what quality does he want? He says, I don't think he worries about the quality, it's the quantity.
Mom, when you were growing up, if you were ticked off, was there someplace special you used to go to be alone? Or?
I never got ticked off. I was always such a sweet child.
What about you, Dad?
Yeah.
You had a place to go on?
I could never do anything right, it seemed like at times, but yet if my parents were going away for 2 or 3 days, they wanted me to be doing the chores because they knew that I would. And when I was herding sheep, I counted the sheep every night. Because if a sheep is gone, and I always relate this to the scriptures now, how it says if there's 99 in the fold and 1 is missing, you go looking for it. And an example of that one time is, well, I was about 17, and we was in the Weatherhead quarter, and I came home, and there was a new lamb. This was in July, born that day. And it traveled good and everything. And just as we was coming up the hill, before we dropped down into our house, I never noticed him missing, but when we got down there was no lamb. And so I went back, and I knew he was inside of that fence, so I rode, and I rode, and I rode. And it was getting dark. And then I went up another time, right up there, and here was a badger hole about that big around and about that deep, and that lamb had been coming with his mother and fell in there. And I reached down there and got that lamb and put it up there on the saddle, and the feeling that come over me finding that lamb is undescribable.
It was really a neat feeling.
Yes, it was. It was really neat. So,
but more of a spiritual kind of feeling.
That's right. To think that you had found something that you didn't think you was ever going to see again.